shortly. Danny's in Winchester. Danny, what would you like to say?
Yeah, it's a really interesting discussion about why people decide to sort of take on anti-vaccination views. And it's something I've actually been looking at for quite a while. I'm a vet. I'm a trustee of a evidence-based medicine charity as well. And I've written a couple of times in things like New Scientist about, people who decide to opt for alternative medicine rather than for sort of conventional medicine. And specifically when it comes to vaccines, I think there's two issues. It's firstly, vaccinations and a lot of modern medicine is a victim of its own success, because now you don't see as many children with measles, and when it used to be very common before vaccination.
Oh, gosh.
People were aware that you'd go blind, you could have brain damage, you could even die.
Yes.
And now that you've never seen anyone with measles, you're more worried about the potential damage that the vaccine might do, because you're not aware of the common and potential damage that the disease could do. And we see this with pet owners as well. There's diseases in the UK that dogs don't get anymore, and people start to worry about the potential side effects of the vaccination.
So if we still had children walking around in calipers, or we still had, bereavements that were commonplace, then the almost, for want of a better phrase, the PR that vaccination needs would be done naturally, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm probably slightly out of date now. Because last time I looked at 5 or 6 years ago, but there's about 300,000 children a year going blind worldwide from measles,
Wow.
in countries where vaccination isn't common. Whereas, when's the last time anyone in the UK heard of a child going blind from measles?
Yeah,
it's really rare. And I think the other thing as well is both doctors and vets at the moment, we're really, really understaffed, and we've got a lot of time pressure. And I think some of the problem is when people come in with concerns and they feel like the doctor or the vet is sort of feeling rushed, they don't have the time to address their concerns. And sometimes people feel like they can't sort of question the doctor with a load of other questions when they feel like they need to just get in and out and not take up the doctor's time.
Yes.
And they maybe didn't get to sort of get the reassurance they needed that the vaccines, are safe, or, have a discussion about what the actual risks are. And then if you go home and you're feeling a bit uneasy and you feel like your concerns weren't addressed, that's when you start Googling, is it? And that's when you start finding, you're going down these sort of conspiracy theory rabbit warrens, and had you had a bit more time with the doctor, or had you had the confidence to ask for reassurance or ask what the evidence is, you might not have gone home and felt the need to go and check it out, for yourself. And then you get, inaccurate and some sort of very dubious information that gets you really worried.
Yeah, that's what I like about that explanation, is that it's kind. I'm afraid I haven't been very kind in my conversations about this over the last few years, because I don't feel much kindness towards the kind of people who rise way above the parapet. But of course, once again, it's contempt for the con men, compassion for the conned territory. And although the public liars, the people who are performatively spreading disinformation deserve our contempt, your explanation of how people might end up believing things that are objectively wrong or ridiculous is a lot kinder, and I thank you for it. So the doctor is overworked, understaffed, simply hasn't got time to take 10 minutes to put someone's mind at ease. You go home, you Google it, the algorithm is set up, as the earlier caller explained, in such a way that you're going to be bombarded with misinformation and disinformation. And a lot of it's going to look plausible. It's coming from what looks like a proper studio or what looks like a proper page, internet page, or a proper organisation. And then you find a couple of people who've got a couple of qualifications that look a bit medical, even if they've got nothing to do with immunology and vaccines. And that's it. It's game over. You're going to start believing them rather than the people who've spent their life studying the subject that you're confused about.
What's really interesting as well is that people tend to trust information from other people they can relate to rather than from someone who's an expert. And that's one reason when you're doing health campaigns, like whether you often get a mother to talk about why they vaccinated their child, because other people will identify with that better. Or, in the veterinary world, we might get someone who's, dog's got diabetes, or, I don't know, someone else who owns Labradors, But rather than having an immunologist or, a specialist saying this is why you should do it. Because it's the same with politics. If you want to change people's sort of viewpoints, often they're, their kind of attitudes are closely tied to their personal values rather than their educational level. So when it comes to communicating with people and trying to change minds, and I find this, whether it's in politics or whether it's sort of being a vet, this is going to sound really cheesy, but I do quite a lot of teaching communication skills for vet students. And one thing we say is people don't care how much you know; they want to know how much you care. And that's the point where if they feel that you've got their best interests at heart, they trust the information that you're giving them. And that's when you can really get people on board and get them engaged with either health campaigns or, your local political campaign or whatever it is you're trying to do. Whereas if you tell them, because you're an expert and you've got a PhD and other qualifications, why they're wrong, it just gets their back up. And you find that these other people who are spreading misinformation, often making a lot of money out of it as well, they really are, like you said, they do deserve contempt, but they're really good at making people feel like they're really good at engaging. They're good at making people feel like that they care about them, that they're worried about public health, whatever it is. And they seem to do a better job of spreading that information than sort of professionals do.
That's a beautiful analysis. No, that's so. Tell me that line again, because I'm going to nick it. How much they care? What is it? Care and know.
Yeah, so that's exactly it. My
tell me the line. Tell me the line. Tell me the line.
When I first graduated as a vet, he said the best advice I can give you is people don't care how much you know; they want to know how much you care.
Don't care how much you know; they want to know how much you care. Crikey. Anyone else thinking of the referendum at this point in the conversation? Or is that's just the way my warped brain works? Thank you, Daddy. That was brilliant. 12:49 is the time.